This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. So the sweepstakes to be the next Illinois Poet Laureate are starting to heat up. I've really kind of opened up a Pandora's box, if you will.
I have a good one. But listeners go first.
Well, I mean, so I suggest I don't have the time to do it. So if nominated, I will not run. Dan. If elected, I will not serve. However, Downers Grove native, Leaping Lanny Poffo, a former poet laureate of the WWF.
Yeah, exactly.
I have nominated him, Marcus, our program director.
Oh, who is he nominating?
I didn't. How about he listens to the show? I had no
idea. That's fantastic.
So he said, I'll support the Poffo bid for laureate, but only if he writes his poems on Frisbees and tosses them into the crowd like he used to. Well, obviously.
Sweet.
Obviously, that would be a stipulation for Poffo to be nominated. I'm sorry that Randy Macho Man Savage, his brother, is not with us, so I can't nominate him. You have a nominee?
Ditka, Coach Ditka, or anybody on the 85 Bears, because they have not gotten enough recognition.
Well, it's true. They should get more recognition.
We should appreciate them more.
I don't know. We'd have to move the state capital to Bobolink. So Ronnie Woo Woo nominated 630. Andrew Dice Clay nominated from 219. Andrew Dice Clay not an Illinois
he's not
native or resident, so that won't work.
Keep it local, folks.
And please 219. We're a new Criterion show here. We're conservatives who appreciate the arts. Dirty limericks, not poetry. You know. All right, that's just a little bit of the local. We'll continue to take your suggestions for Illinois Poet Laureate.
Go to 64636, type in DA, then your nomination.
Yeah, or if you'd like to recite poetry, we'll do a little poetry slam here. 312-642-5600 is the turnkey.pro answer line. We got to talk a little tax reform with Grover Norquist, also a man of letters, somebody who appreciates the arts. Perhaps he will have a verse or two he'd like to share with us. But first, Donald Trump shared with us his view on tax reform, particularly as it pertains to the wealthy. Here's what the president had to say.
The rich will not be gaining at all with this plan. We're looking for the middle class, and we're looking for jobs. I think the wealthy will be pretty much where they are. Pretty much where they are. If we can do that, we'd like it. If they have to go higher, they'll go higher.
I don't remember that on the campaign trail. I thought he was going to cut taxes for the middle class and the upper class and not raise taxes for the upper class.
No. First of all, we don't have classes in this country because we're not India. We have families who make different levels of money on a rolling annual basis. But he had suggested previously tax cuts for everyone. But he was also willing to be punitive to, say, the money changers that run hedge funds, for example. He was open to that idea during the campaign trail. So are these fighting words that Trump offered or insightful words for trying to get tax reform done? To that, we asked the president of Americans for Tax Reform, Grover Norquist. Grover, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Great to be with you.
Did you have a nominee for Illinois Poet Laureate before we get started?
I don't, but I am working on a limerick about tax reform.
All right, very good.
I will call in when it's done. I'm looking for things that rhyme with taxes.
Yes.
And tax credits.
Oh, yes. Boy, tax credits. That's tough. Okay, we'll give you some time on that. What about President Trump's words about middle income families need relief? Certainly we need to reduce the corporate rate. And if the wealthy perhaps need to pay more, then they have to pay more.
Well, it's a weird comment. What he's reacting to or overreacting to is the left responds to every reduction in taxes, every refusal to raise taxes, as that's just for the rich. That's what they say. Remember, Obama said he was going to raise taxes on the top 1%, but nobody else. It took him 16 days before he raised taxes on cigarette smokers, average income $40,000 a year. And then in Obamacare, there were 8 taxes that directly whack the middle class, including taxes on your insurance premiums that makes your insurance cost more for everybody. And on medical devices. So if you have a wheelchair and make $20,000 a year, there's a tax on it. So one should just, when the Democrats say it's all about tax cuts for the rich, that's what they said about Reagan's tax cuts, which were 25% across the board and created 4% growth a year as opposed to the 2% growth a year that Obama did. The best way to have economic growth is to have lower taxes overall. The president gets that on the corporate income tax. What he appears to be misunderstanding is that on the individual side, there are 30 million American companies that are called pass-throughs, like sole proprietorships, partnerships, subchapter S corporations. They pay their business taxes through the personal income tax rate. So when the Democrats go, we're going to raise taxes on rich people to 40% plus state taxes, what they've just done, as they did under Obama, is to raise those taxes on small businesses that look like rich people because they're 10 people working for the company. And it looks like it's a bunch of money, and it is, but it's not one person's money. So when you raise taxes on the higher income personal rates, you're actually taxing smaller businesses. And Trump is used to larger businesses, not smaller businesses. So it's a little disconcerting, although to be fair to Trump and to back up, he was the one who asserted that we should drop the business tax rate for people who pay subchapter S companies, which would be a dramatic tax reduction for people in the top bracket who are running businesses inside their personal income tax rate. So we've heard this before. Mnuchin made some comment months and months ago, we're not going to cut tax on rich people. What they mean is we're focused on growth. We're focused on the middle class. The beneficiaries of reducing the tax rate on investment and savings and business income is the guy who didn't have a job last week and gets one next week.
Well,
he has an infinite increase in his income.
So Steve Mnuchin said
zero to something good.
Mnuchin said yesterday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that all tax cuts will be paid for with economic growth. How is that going to happen?
That's a very healthy sign, very healthy sign. What it means is we have now dynamic scoring. Back when Reagan was president, they used static scoring. They said that if you raise taxes on people, it won't discourage them from working. If you cut taxes on savings, investment, and work, you won't get more of it, which is nonsense. We cut taxes on across the board. We got more work, more savings, more investment. All of the static model people looked stupid for 7 years in a row. Eventually, they said, okay, we can do some dynamic scoring. We'll recognize that if you cut the capital gains tax, every time we do that, we actually get more money from capital gains. We will recognize some dynamic scoring. And so when they say if you cut the business tax, the corporate income tax from 35% down to 20 or 15%, you may lose some revenue because you were expecting a 35%. You would get so much more growth, though, that you will regain much of that, maybe not all, but much of that tax revenue that was lost by cutting the rates. And you count that against tax cuts. So you say, okay, how much are we losing for the tax cut and how much are we gaining from growth? Keep in mind one number. This is a CBO number. This is the idiot government number, okay? So this is not some number criticizing the way the government does its calculations. If you grow at 4% a year instead of 2% a year, at Reagan levels instead of Obama levels, and you do that for 1 decade, 10 years, the government will net $6 trillion in additional tax revenue. Not by raising taxes, but because more people are working, making more money, and paying taxes. $6 trillion. You can cut taxes a lot if the goal of that is to get growth from 2% to 4%, which is what Reagan did.
But the problem you have, of course, Grover, is that you have a lot of big government Republicans who buy the class envy rhetoric that the left is prone to promulgate. And so the question, one of the questions, at least a political question, is, are you in the camp of Moore, Kudlow, Laffer, Forbes, get the corporate rate down to 20% roughly, do something for middle-income families, even if it's just the standard deduction, try and flatten personal rates a little bit and call it a day, declare victory, or the Paul Ryan camp, which seems to be this is an opportunity to really kind of holistically rethink the tax code?
I'm for both, but this is not either or. This is not the last tax cut. This is 2017. We will cut taxes. We will get growth. The more growth you get, the more Republicans get elected in 2018. if we do a good pro-growth job with this tax reform, we will have lots of jobs, and people will recognize the change that took place. The Republicans will hold the Senate and strengthen in the Senate and hold the House. And then you've got another 2 years to do more tax reduction and more tax reform. So I'm for getting as much tax reform as we can while maximizing the pro-growth sections of it. We can come back later and clean up little nit things here and there. I'm not in favor of getting in any war with some little tax deduction over in one corner that some senators are in love with. Come back and get it later when there are 5 more Republican senators, and we don't need that one person to do the next tax reform.
He is Grover Norquist, President of Americans for Tax Reform. We'll look forward to that tax credit limerick you're working on. Grover, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
There was a young lady from Manhattan. Okay,
Oh, my God.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grover.
And he joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news.